Welcome to InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw. Children and teens around the world have technology in their hands that no other generation has had. Not only do they have instant access to information, others have access to them. How do parents protect their children from predators? Why are so many children and teens finding themselves in a situation where they think suicide is their only option? How did we get here? What is sextortion and why is it the fastest growing online threat to children? And how can parents be proactive in fighting this and other forms of digital dangers? Here to help us and equip you with facts and tools is Kyle Tarr, the Prevention Program Director at Liberty House, our local children's advocacy center serving Marion and Polk Counties. And it also facilitates an online safety community campaign called iRespect&Protect. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kyle.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk.
Well, we've talked about this before, and it's time now to really get into depth about this. And before we begin, everyone, take note and heart. All this information and more is available at iRespect&Protect.com. Explore that website. It's worth it. Some questions now to explore regarding teens. How much time do teens normally spend these days on social media?
Well, that's a great question. According to a study that was released last year by Common Sense Media, it was on media use by tweens and teens. The youth that they surveyed, teens are spending an average of about 8.5 hours every day consuming media. And that's a 17% increase since the pandemic. So out of that 8.5 hours, teens are usually spending about 3 hours watching TV or different videos. And specifically on social media, it's estimated about an hour and a half every day.
Every day. Oh my gosh. And how much of that screen time changes the way children and teens interact with their family and friends?
Well, yeah, that's, children are growing up in an unprecedented time. They have not known any other time other than, the advent of cell phones and just that explosion of, just unfettered internet access. And, we've all been through so much recently. The pandemic has really left a scar on everyone and impacted us all in different ways. So in particular, kids are experiencing a great deal of social anxiety. They don't know how to manage stress. And so, this increased, reliance on technology just really increases that likelihood that when they experience stress or a challenge in their life, that they'll turn to a device to help cope rather than turning to a person. And actually, just a couple months ago in June 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory about social media's impact on youth's mental health. And while we can acknowledge that, there are some benefits, there's really a growing body of research about the potential harms. And in particular with social media, youth are really commonly exposed to harmful and inappropriate content. And we know that frequent social media use can contribute to poor mental health, including depression and anxiety. And, that this age is just so crucial. Early adolescence, really that 10 years old to 15-year-old age range, that's when identities and that sense of self-worth are forming. So children's development is, especially susceptible to social pressures, peer opinions, comparing themselves to their peers as well.
How does social media amplify teens' insecurity?
Well, in our work, we talk with youth all the time. And, we know that everyone has that desire, to be liked. And, youth especially really crave that connection. They want to they want to feel heard, feel seen. And so, they use cell phones and social media to connect with one another. But, a lot of times those connections are more superficial. So they don't really necessarily know how to form those deep, meaningful relationships. So, that's one way that this type of increased social media use kind of amplifies, those feelings of insecurity, comparing themselves to others, not necessarily knowing how to connect with, one another, in person too.
I'm thinking loneliness. That must play a role in all of this and increase a teen's sense of vulnerability.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that, the parents of children may not have grown up with, what kids have nowadays, which is essentially a little mini supercomputer in their pocket that opens up all types of gateways to, the wide world. And, with youth growing up, especially over the past couple of years, with, those fewer opportunities to connect in person with the pandemic, that has really had an impact. And so, we with our work really want children to know that they matter, that they have value that never changes. And they have self-worth that isn't determined by, the number of followers you have or the number of likes on your picture. So, although that social media use, that can be a way for youth to try to, satisfy those feelings of loneliness, to connect with other people, to find community. We really want children to know that, love isn't a transaction. That's one of our foundational principles with iRespect&Protect.
Well, thank you for that. And I'd like to get more into that with you. Right at the moment, I want to talk about something called sextortion. The news stories of young people being trapped by it and feeling like they have no other option but to take their own lives and do is devastating. What is sextortion?
Well, sextortion is a crime, and that's basically where someone is threatened, really most frequently with that possibility of, having their nude or sexual images or videos shared with close friends, family members, or the general public. And, that's done by a person, who's blackmailing them. And that can be in exchange for other sexual images or videos, meeting in person, sexual favors, and it can also be for money, that financial sextortion.
How does it work? Give me an example.
Well, many cases are a result of communicating with a stranger online. And the FBI estimates that there's about 500,000 online predators who are active every day. And so many of these people will create multiple profiles on different platforms in order to be able to communicate with children. And what's incredibly dangerous about this is that these predators, they don't have to be master criminals. They're not expert hackers or scammers a lot of the time. Typically, it's someone who will start up a conversation and with that intention of manipulating the child, really trying to develop an emotional connection to gain their trust. So they may initiate that contact, on one platform and then ask the child to move to a different platform. And that may be because, it's lesser known. It may offer those disappearing messages or fewer privacy controls. And, that person that they're talking to in that process of changing platforms, that person that they're talking to can also change. That can be someone who's a little bit more skilled in, that sextortion aspect. And this crime, it also doesn't necessarily take a long time to happen. This can progress just over a matter of hours.
Oh my goodness. So let's say a child is playing an online game with friends, and then they have a good time having an online game relationship with somebody, and say, "Hey, I'd like to maybe play that game with that person again." Is that a way that somebody who they don't even know isn't their own age can entrap them?
Yeah, that is a frequently a manner in which this occurs. It starts out innocent, just being friends, and eventually over time, that predator will continue to manipulate the child. And a lot of times, the youth are led to believe that they're talking to someone their own age. So, through that means of coercion, deceit, and other type of manipulative tactics, that person can attain an image of a child that they're then using to try to blackmail them for money, more images. And if the child doesn't meet those demands, that predator, that blackmailer, will threaten to make those images public. sending it to their close friends, their siblings, their parents, or other family members. So they're really intentionally trying to make that child feel like they don't have any choice, that they can't talk to anyone about this.
And how do teens react to this kind of threat? And why is that threat so powerful that it could lead to the unthinkable, suicide, and over a
Well,
short period of time?
yeah, it's
This to me is astonishing.
such an important question because, a lot of times we know that victims don't report because they feel that shame, that embarrassment, and they blame themselves. And so, youth, when they experience this, they're incredibly confused. They have those feelings of fear, of guilt, when this crime happens, like they did something wrong. And so if youth don't feel like they can talk to someone about it, those outcomes can be fatal because they feel like their life is over. And so it's really crucial to let youth know that it's not their fault, that there is support available. And adults can provide that vital support by talking openly, with their children without judgment, without shame, because that's how this is allowed to continue and those potentially fatal outcomes occur.
Your website makes it clear sextortion is the fastest growing online threat to children. How do you know that? Is it such an awful threat?
Well, that's the U.S. Department of Justice actually said that sextortion is that fastest growing online threat to children. And there, in December of last year of 2022, there was a national public safety alert to raise awareness about this threat and this explosion, this increase in sextortion cases. And although we want to believe that this won't happen to a child in our lives, anyone can be manipulated and exploited by someone they talk to online. And over recent years, the number of sextortion reports have more than doubled. In 2022, law enforcement received more than 7,000 reports regarding online financial sextortion of minors, and that resulted in more than 3,000 victims and more than a dozen suicides. And the FBI has also stated that there's been a 322% increase in nationally reported sextortion cases from February 2022 to February 2023. And victims often don't tell because of that shame or embarrassment or self-blame. So we know that there's likely thousands of more unreported victims.
Well, how do you get your child, if you're a parent, to open up about a possible sextortion?
Well, the conversation between parents and children, has typically revolved around, don't do it, don't do it. You get that request, don't send that image of yourself, because when you press send, you lose control of where it goes, what happens next. But with that conversation, we also need to add, but if you do, I'll be there for you. We need to let children know that they can always talk to us about anything without judgment or shame, because we know that abuse thrives in silence. And since children often blame themselves, and to be honest, we have a society, our culture of victim blaming. So these difficult situations become easier to navigate when you feel supported. So in terms of trying to get a youth to open up, we want parents and caregivers to be proactive. It can help to talk with your child about online safety and what to do if they see something or they talk to someone that makes them feel uncomfortable or unsafe. So, that message we really want youth to hear is talk to a safe adult immediately. If someone has threatened them, we want them to know that they're not alone and that they can reach out for support.
What should a teen do? For example, if someone they've met online has threatened to go public with information or images about him or her?
Well, if a child is disclosing that they're a victim of sextortion, one of the most important things that an adult can do is thank them for telling them. Because again, just imagine that courage that took for them to speak up, and to reach out for help. So we also want to remember that the blackmailer is to blame. This doesn't mean that you're a bad parent if this happens. This doesn't mean that, it's your child's fault. The child's a victim of a crime, and you should contact local law enforcement immediately. So the research has shown that cooperating or paying the predator rarely stops these blackmail attempts. So if sextortion occurs through a specific app or platform, some of the important steps to take on that platform, you can help the child report that account. You can also block that perpetrator. However, it's not advised to delete your profile or delete the messages that blackmailer has sent the child, because that evidence can be really important. That can help law enforcement be able to locate and stop the predator. And in addition to calling local law enforcement, there's also other resources that are available to be able to make a report of this online abuse, this cyber abuse. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they have a cyber tip line. Their website is report.cybertip.org. You can also reach out to them by email or phone number for help and support as well.
Is there a way to get images of your child off the web?
Well, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they are a phenomenal resource. This national organization, they also have a free service called Take It Down. So if a child has, already trusted someone and sent a picture, safe adults can help them minimize that spread by utilizing this free service. And not all social media platforms are partners with this service, but there are a lot of important ones like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And so if your image is already out there, you can make this report, and those platforms that participate, whenever there is that image that appears, it will automatically remove that. So that can be a really helpful way if an image is already out there to minimize that spread and mitigate that damage.
I'm already thinking to myself, all the screen time, parents don't really know what their children are watching or when. They want to trust their children, and at the same time, they don't want to minimize just how much danger is lurking, and they want to be proactive. Your website helps. Take us there.
Well, perfect. Yeah, our website is a resource for the community. This is what we do. Our mission with iRespect&Protect is to be able to foster that positive self-worth, encourage safe relationships, and promote healthy online choices. So that's, really that message that we want children to know, is that, they have a choice. There is support. And so the resources and tools that we have on our website, we have sections specifically for younger kids, for teenagers, for parents and caregivers, and organizations as well. And so that support for parents, one of the tools that I wanted to highlight is we've recently created a list of parental controls and monitoring tools. Because that's one of the questions that we often get from parents when we're out in the community and providing trainings is, what can I use to help keep my kids safe? And so we've developed a list with some pros and cons of some of the most popular parental controls and monitoring tools, because we want to help parents and caregivers be able to make informed decisions. But really, what we also want to really reinforce and highlight is that, these types of parental controls and monitoring tools, they're a supplement. So they can help with that online safety, but there's no replacement for a parent's time, attention, and support. So one of the ways that we also help parents be able to navigate this digital landscape, every year, we just did this in August, we update our list of apps to be aware of. And for this year, I think it was almost up to about 50. And so we're doing that research to find out what are the most popular apps, the riskiest ones, what dangers those present, just to let parents be aware of what's out there. Because it can be really overwhelming to try to stay on top of, the latest trends. A new app can pop up, every day, and explode in popularity. And so this resource, we break that down into terms of apps that are kind of messaging apps, live streaming, different gaming apps, apps that are used for making connections like dating or friendships, as well as social media apps. So we're here as a resource for the community because we want parents to be their go-to person for their child. And so we offer different tools and resources in addition to our trainings to be able to help parents support their children in navigating, the challenges and pressures of growing up in this digital landscape.
Do you have any stories that illustrate how these tools have saved lives?
Yeah, well, I actually have two stories that I can share. When we are providing this education and talking to parents, one of the things that we always try to encourage parents is to, when something happens, to not unplug your child, to not take away their phone, to take away their device, because a lot of times kids can fear that punishment, and that causes them to not even disclose or tell their parents what happened in the first place. So, we've heard so many stories from parents who have relayed those challenges that have occurred because, their child, and it's a natural feeling. When your child's, being hurt, you want to remove them from that. But because technology is so important in kids' lives, that can actually lead to kids hiding, kind of just not sharing what's happened to them. So, we've heard a lot of different stories about how our tools and resources have helped parents realize that importance, that, technology is a tool, so it can be used for good and for bad. So it's really important to, educate our kids and how to be, responsible digital citizens. And another really important story that I just wanted to take a second to highlight. We've recently created a school curriculum called My Worth, which is 4 45-minute sessions. So we're talking about issues like self-worth, resilience. We're talking about that importance of friends and how to navigate peer pressures, talking about cell phones and social media and the types of risks that children can be exposed to. And so when we had recently facilitated a training for a local sixth grade health class, there was a youth who, after one of those sessions in which we're talking about the potential dangers and consequences of sending inappropriate or sexual images or videos, after that session, they were actually hanging out with a friend that was a little bit younger than them. They were about 12 years old. Their friend was around 10. And just in conversation, their friend shared that they don't want to be on Snapchat anymore. And, their friend, asked why. And so what happened was someone who that person met and were playing games with online, they were sending them friend requests. And this child, they, kind of ignored it for a while, and they kind of knew them. They didn't know them in person. So they eventually just, accepted the friend request. They didn't really think through the potential risks of that. And when they had accepted that friend request, that person then started sending several messages asking them to send nude images, to send that inappropriate content. And so that child, they didn't know what to do. They didn't tell anyone. They just felt like it happened on this platform. It happened on Snapchat. I don't want to be part of that anymore. But their friend, who actually just went through that training, that education, it was an aha moment. I know what to do. We need to tell our parents immediately. They'll know what to do. There's a service where you can report this, and you can help resolve the situation. So that's a great story to highlight that importance of educating the youth themselves too, because it helps them advocate for themselves and help support their friends too.
Kyle, you have a video you'd like us to all watch. Tell us about it. It's short.
So this video is called I Define My Self-Worth. And this was actually a youth project. So it's a local youth who wanted to share their story and help impact other youth in our community.
In middle school, I was known for wearing heavy makeup. I caked on my foundation and drew my eyebrows really thick. Sometimes my classmates made comments or whispered about me, but I tried really hard not to let it bother me. Towards the end of my 8th grade year, a couple of boys in my class made a fake Instagram account and wrote mean and hurtful comments on all my posts. Their comments kept popping up over and over and over, and I couldn't delete them. I took some time to pause and reflect. I thought about my feelings. I was worried people would read the comments and believe them. I didn't want people to stop liking me or being my friend, but I wanted to be true to myself. I reached out to people who knew me and loved me for who I was, not what type of makeup I wore. What I learned is that if it makes me happy and I'm not hurting anyone, then why should I care what other people think or say? Today, I sometimes have to work hard to be confident in myself. I choose to focus on my own words rather than the words of others. My own opinion of myself is the most important. I am the only one who determines my self-worth. No one else can tell me who I am.
Wow, that was really moving. I have to say, what a wonderful video for that young person to have created. Well, thank you, Kyle. I can't thank you enough for being able to tell us and show us all the tools that we need to be proactive in this brave new world of digital danger. Thank you, Kyle Tarr, the Prevention Program Director at Liberty House, our local children's advocacy center serving Marion and Polk Counties, which, again, facilitates an online safety community campaign called iRespect&Protect. Thank you for joining us today on InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.
iRespect&Protect.com aims to help young people gain and keep positive self-worth, to assist them with their online choices, and to encourage safe relationships. It provides tools for parents, youth, children, and organizations to help begin conversations on challenging and serious issues like sexting, online interactions, healthy relationships, and digital device use. It also is an online safe haven, a place that affirms a person's worth and supplies visitors with immediate access to help should they need it. It's important for youth and families to have the knowledge and tools to get the most out of being digitally connected while avoiding the potential negative and damaging sides of that connection. If you or someone you know is in need of help, there are people and resources available for you now. If you are a youth or a parent of a youth in crisis, you can call the Oregon Youth Line at 1-877-968-8491. To learn more about being safe online and keeping children safe online, visit iRespect&Protect.com. To learn more about Liberty House's wider services, please visit libertyhousecenter.org or call 503-540-0288.